73% of clothing goes to landfill every year.
I really appreciate you taking the time, Pete. Alex, and again, we're usually the Truevo Talks duo at the moment, so happy to have you here again. How are you? You all right?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Yeah, so this one came pretty much out of the blue, really, didn't it, Alex? I think this is probably one of the best that I've been looking forward to, not just to discredit the others that we've done. I'm really excited.
You say that to all the boys, so come on.
He sussed you right out, George. You're so
yeah, straight off the bat.
It's like that Bruce Forsyth thing where he says, "You're my favourite," and then the next person comes on and it's like, "You're my favourite." I've got you.
Suss me out. That's exactly what this is. Do you know what? No, but I am. I think, and the reason is because I actually have bought from the brand before. I've seen a lot of your content online. It's something that I'm personally, invested in, and I'm kind of just following your stuff. And I was looking forward to getting your perspective on things and just having a chat with you, really. And again, I think Alex was the same. I think he was the one that recommended it to me. So I think we're going to jump right into it. I want to just learn a little bit about you, Pete. What's your role at Bamboo Clothing, and kind of a little bit about yourself and the story?
Yeah, and so at BAM, I oversee all of marketing and working really closely with our product director on the brand and what we communicate, how we communicate, and kind of everything in between, really. So marketing and comms specifically overseeing, and within that, in these days, actually what you say, how you say it, the creative which you put in front are often the things that really are your levers and the real things that can make a campaign or make your everyday marketing successful. So that's what I oversee. My background, God, here we go. It's been 17 odd years, but I started as an original content creator, so writer or sub-editor, and actually started off in TV as a runner and worked on some amazing shows that when you look back you think, well, when I say amazing, I quite enjoyed them, but I think production rules will be very different now, and but it was an exciting time. And then I moved on to the online side of broadcasting, so again quite in its infancy, but content creation on sister, brother, whatever partner websites as it was then. It wasn't social media or anything like that. And then young career, freelancing, not getting a lot of work, getting some work. I went to Australia for a bit where I worked for an investment bank, and really, if anyone's listening to this and they're early on in their careers, I didn't really know where I was going, and I still don't. But I kind of went really in a what's interesting me, what skills am I getting. So as much as an investment bank and wasn't really my cup of tea in terms of my day-to-day, I love what I do. It taught me how to deal with clients, deal with people, taught me a lot of skills about what you do in those circumstances. So came back, worked as a sub-editor at a national paper, did some writing, subbing, publishing onto the website there, and then also at the same time I was working at Channel 4 as an online producer for a TV show there, which I think was Gemma Kearney's, the BBC Radio 1 DJ's first paid, I think, TV or gig like that. At least I'd never noticed her before, maybe I'm wrong, but she was definitely on that. And then kind of then zigged out of that and got an opportunity to work at a team virtual world called Habbo Hotel, which is the world's largest, or was the world's largest virtual world for teens, and very specific. And we really there were inventing the social media playbook, really, because we were community marketing, social marketing, and doing loads of amazing, award-winning, cutting-edge work. We invented, and we had all of these teams engaging on the platform, and we would come along, and one of the campaigns was the Idea Agency, where we put in a creative agency into this world and had people staff it, kids staff it, in order to get more teenage boys specifically, but generally children, to be engaging with Childline and understanding their mission. So they were making the ads, they were doing the campaigns, they were doing all of this, getting virtual Fernie and all of this sort of stuff, and it was really amazing. And then from there, it just kind of evolved with the industry. So content marketing, which quickly became social media marketing, which quickly, as you go up, becomes kind of brand marketing, messaging, and then marketing more holistically, digital, and kind of then just kind of grew with the agency and been client side, been agency side, been publisher side. So kind of seen it from quite a wide range of different things. So that's in a nutshell. But I mean, really, I think my background has always been what I obsess over, and what I find most interesting is that I'm a creative brain, and a words brain, how you're communicating it, a visual person. So they're the things that I probably always will gravitate rather than towards a complicated Excel, if I'm honest.
There's a hell of a backstory.
There you go.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what, eclectic, right? And that probably just shows you, doesn't it? I love that you touched on the fact that any advice, or if you were going to kind of talk to a younger yourself or a younger person now about their career journey, is that actually it's not always just a pure linear route to get where you want to get to, and also what you think you want to end up doing, or what you think you want to achieve when you're younger, isn't necessarily actually where you want to be when you get to that point anyway.
But you change, right?
Everything's an experience.
You change
right?
as a person. Your values might change. Your outlook might change. Your priorities certainly will change. Certainly see a couple of kiddie pictures behind you there. I think Alex, your child or children, can't quite make it out whether they're the same.
No, I've not been brave enough to have more than one, so that's my little girl.
So your prize. So it's all of that sort of stuff that, and I think really for me is, social media didn't exist, even as a marketing function or as a thing that you could work in. I think kind of we had a bit of MySpace and AOL chat and maybe a bit of MSN, but it just wasn't a thing. So the industry wasn't there. So being in the early parts of that and kind of seeing how it grows, and you just don't know where you're going to go.
So I'm curious, what then drew you to, or where did the journey start at Bamboo? You've had all this experience, and what was kind of then, I'm going to go into that kind of online retail? Was it something did you get pushed into that, or was that something you just found yourself in?
It was less about, I want to work in online retail. It was more, I want to work for a business that shares my values, that I think is a good business, that isn't a profit-only business, and something where I've worked for charities, so as well as out and out commercial businesses, and I wanted to work somewhere, and I thought, where can I take my skills and be in a commercial organisation perhaps that also can cause and affect something really positive, and something that you want to see change, and something that you care about. Charities are brilliant, but sometimes you get too close to a cause, and that you have to be a certain type of person that can maybe deal with that anger and frustration or sadness or things like that. But I also really firmly believe that businesses can be the change. That is what we live in our society, and so to be able to work for a business that with the values it has, I thought was a really great opportunity at this point in my career. And the other thing is that we're based predominantly, although we have a London office, we're based predominantly in the southwest, and living down in South Devon now. I live in London for 16 odd years. And I grew up in Southeast Essex, so there's a lot of time spent there. Just being able to represent a business that's trying to do good and a business that isn't so London based, I think is really important. And I think that also gives you a very different perspective on life, culture, the news, etc. So I think that was also really important.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I totally align with that, because it's interesting you say about, and again, I don't want to kind of sort of put words in your mouth or summarise too much, but it felt that what you're saying is that you love working for a business where it's not just purely commercial, there's a purpose behind it, and you can buy into that purpose that is a kind of byproduct of your values. And it's really interesting because we had a gentleman called Patrick, who is MD of Linwood's Health Foods, on a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that he touched on, and I've kind of brought it up in a couple of my posts this week on LinkedIn from some of the content we got from that podcast, but purpose was really big for him, and actually people understanding that look, okay, we're a business that we make, mill and pack and sell linseed, right? But that's just not what we do. There's a reason why we do that. Well, actually, this is about giving people the ability to make maybe their lifestyle a little healthier. Well, what's the byproduct of that? Well, if they have a healthier lifestyle, they'll maybe have more longevity, or they'll have a greater quality of life, as part of that. And actually, it's just buying that culture into it and knowing we don't just make mill and pack linseed. Actually, there's a reason why we do that, and there's a reason why that they've built their business up like that, to be part of a bigger picture, and I guess a bigger end goal. So look, really, really key there. And look, I think that's becoming more prevalent, and people are buying into that more in terms of the businesses that they not just want to work with, but also from a retail perspective, the brands and the retailers that consumers want to buy from. Brand, I think, sometimes gets banded around a lot without people really understanding what it means, but people really want to know what's behind the business now, and actually what are their values. And it's a really good, I guess, like segue into maybe the second thing I want to talk about, was that, look, you've given us a brilliant overview of, I guess, your career today and some of the choices you've made and why you've maybe ended up at Bamboo. I'd love to know from your perspective, look, what is it that makes Bamboo different? Why have Bamboo been set up? What's the message that they're trying to deliver beyond just doing what they do in terms of, this is clothing, we're trying to sell it? What's the kind of core message and mission?
Yeah, so BAM, our vision is really simple at BAM, and that is prove business can be a force for good and be kindest to people and the planet. That is the fundamental vision, why the business was set up by a guy called Dave in 2006, and how that ladders down in terms of our mission, in terms of our purpose. The thing that drives us is we want to make next generation activewear that's made with purpose. And what do we mean by that? It helps you explore, helps you get active, and also helps you leave the lightest footprint on and your in terms of your personal impact in the world. So what that really means is that we are it's really funny because we say a highly sustainable business. We have a really clear impact positive report and goals. So from a sustainability point of view, we are beginning to call it internally our responsibility. So that's to be impact positive by 2030, but from a range and from a nature point of view, we kind of split it from nature, climate and people. So we are a living wage employer, in fact above living wage. We work with the Fairwear Foundation. Our staff have percentage ownership of the business, so if dividends are taken out, staff get the dividends as well. And that's a really important, our people thing is really important. We're also going to be moving into really bringing it clearly about who makes our clothes. We already do that, but we're actually going to be going into more detail for customers to be able to actually know its entire life cycle of that garment that they buy from us, and that's from a people and a planetary point of view. From a climate point of view, we have been offsetting and been climate positive for a good few years now, but not just in terms of our independent business output, but from the forest to our fabric production to a customer's first 50 washes, we have been offsetting the carbon that comes out. So when you think of carbon, it's really important to think of the impact of it like a bow tie. So you know the classic bow tie shape, probably the ones that I would do if they're clip-ons, not actual ties, because that would be probably completely mangled. But let's do a clip-on bow tie that's been done properly. The amount of carbon that goes out starts off quite large when you're talking about where you're getting your fibers, and then through the production process to the point that it's ready to be shipped, the amount of carbon that goes out goes down. So it goes there, and then the bit in the middle which is actually a very small piece compared to those kind of the knot bit, which is the smallest bit of a bow tie, is actually your operations, your UK operations, and within that is shipping as well. And then the second bit of the bow tie where it goes out is actually our usage of the garment and our washes. So we as a business for the last few years have been paying to offset the first 50 washes of the garment, which is on average how many washes a garment has. It's been a calculation, it was done by someone who wasn't me before I joined, but so we've been covering that. And actually our next step and our responsibility is to say, is that good enough? And how do we progress and move when there's a lot of discussions around the types of offsets you use, how valid offsets are, and actually what you do. The other great thing about climate is that we predominantly make our clothes from bamboo, and that's always generally, I think, something like 95% of our stuff will be bamboo, or a bamboo blend with a cotton or Naya, which is a responsibly sourced wood pulp fibre, which is in our new base layer Novia range. But bamboo is a natural carbon sink. It uses loads less water than organic cotton, no pesticides. So when you have a natural carbon sink, so bamboo doesn't need to be dug out of the ground like most other, so cotton for example, so it just locks in and stores all the carbon. So in terms of our climate strategy, we have been offsetting. We're going to review that and do it in a better way. We've invested in mangrove projects to properly reduce carbon from the atmosphere, and we're going to be looking into doing more of those as we progress. We obviously have a natural part of our product is just naturally better, and that's why we chose to use this product to start with, and then kind of evolve with climate. And the other part of our responsibility is nature, so that's a lot sat down to looking after the environments which we grow in and how we do that. So that's a proper management of chemicals that's used in the process to take a natural fibre into being a natural thing like bamboo, and turning it into a fibre and then turning it into a fabric. But also our 73 range. And one of the big things that we are trying to stop or we're rebelling against is virgin synthetics, so plastics. So if you look at polyester and other synthetic clothing, that is it's made of plastic, it's made of fossil fuels. It's terrible for climate, it's terrible for nature. But the other massively bad part of that is that the two things. First of all, synthetics, because of the way that we sweat, the water goes into products and sits and makes you smell. Whereas bamboo naturally wicks water away and it doesn't react with your skin and thus doesn't smell as much. So again, you need to wash your clothes less because of the bamboo fibre. It's really, it started off years and years and years ago, sort of 30 years ago, and having some issues with production. But we've been to 86%, I think, of our supply chain. We work with them. We're all over it. We're working with all the best partners, and you can wear it in the gym 3 or 4 times and still not need to wash it. We've done loads of proper studies, and we did a thing called the Pong Index this summer about that.
I was going to mention, that's actually how you and me first got in touch, because you ran a campaign on it, and I absolutely loved it, because I'd heard that. It was just one of the funny things. I was like, the Pong Index, and it absolutely caught my attention.
It's amazing. Like, I kind of also collect football shirts and stuff like that, and I might, sometimes I might wear one for tennis or something like that. At the end of it, you're like, wow, I mean, I can't even enter the house. I'm going to have to hose myself down. It might be because I'm unfit, and but actually, when you wear our bamboo blends and things like that, you just don't get it, and you can wear it many times. So it has that, again, impact on climate. The other big bad thing that we are kind of rebelling against is that 73% of clothing goes to landfill every year. Now, if you imagine that most of those are nylons, synthetics, polyesters, fast fashion, this stuff doesn't get broken down, and it is sitting in landfill, and actually is sitting in containers in ports around Britain, or we sell it and it goes off to other countries or gets washed up and things like that. And we think it's a massive disgrace on the industry as a whole. And so we're rebelling against that, and the way that we are rebelling against it is, first of all, we've created, it's just a kind of bespoke branded range called 730, which is inspired by that 73%. And the idea that anything in this range that's designed is designed for its end of life in mind. Now, that's not very glamorous when you say it like that, but essentially what it means is that you can recycle it. So the denim is designed to be recycled, so it's easy to cut out the zip. We don't have certain sort of buttons or buckles or bits of metal that stop recycling companies being able to recycle it. We've designed, we have the first, this season, I think it's the world's first fully circular fleece, which is made from recycled polyester, but once you not want it in it anymore, rather than throwing it out, you can send it back to us. We can break it back down into polyester that then can be made into another fleece. And that's the idea around circular, is that it should never go to landfill. So we have jeans, we have running jackets, we have gilets, we have big thicker winter coats, and we want to, by 2030, to have absolutely 100% of our clothing to be fully circular, designed to be recycled or easily recycled. So that's a huge thing. And we also, on the side of that, have invested time and money into a fantastic operation called Shareware. And they're running on their own, but we kind of helped out because we really loved their mission. And they are basically taking clothes and trying to stop clothing poverty. Because, believe it or not, in the UK in 2022, there is people who can't afford to get new clothes, or to maybe they do want to get fit and they don't have activewear. Maybe it's suits, maybe it's shoes, it's things like that. So we work with those guys, and people can order a free post delivery bag with their orders. So if they're getting a new pair of leggings and they don't want their old leggings anymore, they can send it and someone else can go and wear them and use them. So again, it's trying to stop or at least prolong that landfill journey. So awesome. As a business, they are kind of, that's when we look at next generation activewear, is that we're trying to design, we're designing things with running jackets with end of life in mind, so that we can do that. We're using recycled materials, we're using natural based materials. We are trying to look at, base layers, and bamboo base layers are really good, but for high impact, really the bit where you're sprinting or playing football, that sort of thing, they can get a bit heavy because they're designed for a different kind of activity. We went away and, our brilliant technical team and our design team went and made Novia, which is that blend with the wood pulp. So that's what we're kind of all about, really, is that's the purpose bit, the lightest footprint. That's our kind of 3-pillar responsibility strategy, if you will. And that's why we exist, really, and to try and prove business to be a force for good as well, so that it's not all about, our business model isn't let's try and just get revenue, sell. That's not what we're about. We're about inspiring change and to try and drive change in the industry.
I think that's a really good point to finish on. But I have learned a lot there, just from listening to you for the last 15 minutes talk about the purpose of BAM. I mean, I think we're living in a world now where people are almost voting with their money. The brands that people are buying into, the reason we wear the clothes we wear, the brands that we buy from and purchase from. How much of what you've just said over the last 10 to 15 minutes about your purpose is in your marketing content? And how
do I get that down to the first 3 seconds of a social video? Right? And that is the challenge that we have as a business. That is the challenge that we have as an industry. So those people who are genuinely doing good, being able to summarize that, but also remember that people actually want a product that's fit for purpose. Our clothes are unbelievably soft, so you have another level of comfort that you won't get with other fabrics and fibers and businesses and responsibly made gear. So how do we get that in there? How do we get the craft in there that goes into it? So to actually design jeans or running jacket that professionals will want to use in their training, and to craft that so that we can easily recycle it, or work with our recycling partner to make circular clothing. Like, how do you do all of that? And that is a big challenge. And the other big challenge, well, there's a couple of big challenges, is one, I think from 3 years ago, we were one of the real leaders in this, and now everyone's jumping in and saying the same words. So the word sustainable is almost, what's the term, jump the shark or whatever, is lost meaning, which is why we try and use the word responsibility, because we think it is our responsibility as a business to do that. And the other thing is that people who belittle that, so there are a lot of great businesses who use it, and they quite rightly can use it, but then there would be businesses who will say that they have this amazing sustainable range and all that, and that's a capsule of 5 items amongst 4,000 polyester virgin synthetic pieces. We have people, you have people saying, I'm going to drive an electric car wearing a polyester top. When you think about that, you are wearing oil, you're wearing plastic against yourself. That's not nice. That's not, I think there is a big education piece for the world, but I think that those people who, there's a lot of people into it, and a lot of people, it's a really complicated and murky world. We also have, brands now, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, it's just, it's happened. Boohoo coming in and paying all of that money, who are, they're a huge business in compared to us, for Kourtney Kardashian to do a sustainable range and make her a chief sustainability officer. And from what I've seen, it's been widely panned because people are saying, are you kidding? Now, their audience probably don't care. They'll probably buy it because it's a Kardashian. They'll probably buy it because you've got this title that signals to them. So I think that is the challenge, is that you've got your unique USPs, and actually people want a product not just because it's good for the planet, they want it because it's good for what they need it to do. Softness, comfort, support, whatever that might be. You have a lot of people wading into the market, thus losing a part of it. You have people wading in when, I'm not saying they're using the terms wrongly, but there is an element of distrust maybe being created. And then the fourth thing, which is a real challenge, fourth thing is just, people having less time to spend to be able to get that message across, but actually it's being policed a lot better now. So the Green Claims Code is something that's very recently come out, I'd say in the last sort of 8 to 10 months, and it's really kind of picking up now. which is to stop people from making claims that they can't back up. And if you go out there with advertising, then you get taken down and fined and things like that. So I think that Persil had an ad which is kinder to people and the planet, and they had to take it down because they couldn't substantiate it. We have just gone live with our first ever TV campaign, and we had to make it all product and emotion based, because originally we were going to do an ad that talked about the wonder fabric that is bamboo. And the person that we came up against in Clearcast was, I would say, very suspicious, and also made claims against us that were outdated. But for some companies, they weren't wrong. But for us, they were. But basically, you're getting into a grey area. The grey area is what is kindest or kinder or better or worse, because you might say it's better for all of this, but in other areas it could be slightly worse. You know, it's, you know, you've got companies who might say, oh, we manufacture in the UK, but they could manufacture in the UK and thus they assume better for the planet because you're not carting it from Turkey or China or something like that. But you could have the worst polluting factory in the UK in a diesel truck doing small runs of small packaging that is terrible for the planet. You know, so there's so much grey, and so the Green Claims Code is there to identify people making claims that they can't substantiate. But the challenge is that to substantiate the claim, you can't genuinely do that in an ad. You can't do, you know, but so for us, that's our challenge, is that we have all of this stuff to talk about. We have all of these innovations. This season, we have more product innovations than I think any business will have seen in one season. You know, we have a fantastic new natural yoga range that would replace any of the big names that you might buy from, and it's a natural based version of that. We have the Novia, which I discussed. We've got the Fleece that I discussed. We have other 73.0 ranges, which is more circular clothing. We have our denim, you know, all of this, and that's our challenge. That's our challenge as a business, but it's also how much do people understand. That's the other thing of all of it. And from my content days, whether I'm doing an ad for Peaky Blinders or doing an ad for an innovative new fantastic piece of clothing that you can wear and it's great for the planet. Great for the planet. It's better for the planet than synthetics. You see where you can trip yourself up with the confidence. I always try and do think of it like a news story. So back in the days when you were taught, when journalism maybe was held in a different regard, and you were taught about a triangle. So you'd start with your headline, opening para, and you make the story bigger as you go further. And that's something that we try and do and understand, is that what is the headline? And then if we've only got space for 3 lines, or the equivalent of, if it's a video, what are those messages that we're putting in there? Then how do we go deeper? How do we go deeper and deeper and deeper, depending on the platform where we are? So press release, you can go pretty deep. On the website, we can go a lot, you know, we can do it. If we've got email, we can build that up over time, send people through to blog pieces. If we've got 6-second, 10-second ad, we just need the headlines. And that is the approach that we're taking, and it's going through every product, the brand, and understanding and copywriting, literally those bits, so that people across the business can take them and be inspired by them, so they can tweak it, but they understand what that message is depending on the platform, who they're talking to. And that's how I know
you've got something to say, Alex, but I just wanted to touch on quickly something you mentioned, Pete, about having to get such a big story in minimal amount of content. And I think one of the platforms now that, you know, I'm on all the time is TikTok. And I think why I'm on TikTok so much is that it's based on the interest graph. It only shows me stuff that I'm interested in. So I suppose with that in mind, do you think that it's a potential that, you know, you don't have to maybe get everything all in one video, because if someone likes the video, they'll consume it all, and eventually they're going to get fed a lot more of it anyway? Is that the way we could potentially be moving with content?
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's just a natural funnel as a business. So even if you're just talking about, what we do, which is ultimately we want to sell clothes. We're trying to do it in a better way, but you're still in a funnel, right? You've still got a bigger brand message at the top. It's just basically taking that funnel and then thinking about it in messaging, but turning it around the other way. So so actually it's just the headline and further. So that's really interesting. I'll click to their website and then I want to be able to access that information. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
You're not writing it for everyone, but you're writing enough for those people. So there's an old social strategy, content strategy, which is thinking about context. So thinking about immediate. So if someone's just scrolling, what do you tell them in 6 to 10 seconds? What's that just immediate picture that you're able to land your point? Then it's interactive. So you might have 30 seconds or a minute. They might play a game on an ad, or what do you have in that time? And then immersive. So if they're going to sit down at the end of the day, and so there's another thing that with an agency where there's mums. So wake up in the morning, have a quick scroll before having to deal with the kids. So what are you just doing? Really quick point, reinforcing over and over again the same headline or the same point. Then you had the more interactive, but you're not really immersed, where maybe they're picking the kids up. This could be mum or dad or someone who doesn't define themselves as either. But so whomever it is who has a child. Maybe it is they are scrolling and they're waiting, or maybe they're waiting in the queue for their shopping, or whatever that might. Maybe you're on the tube, right, and you're just waiting for the train to come in because you're going to work. Those sections where you have a little bit more time, but you're still quite limited. And then immersive might be as this was, and we're going back over a decade. So that's why maybe the examples are slightly outdated, but where maybe kids are asleep, you then can sit back and you can watch. So it might be that you go on and you go onto YouTube and you're there ready for an 8-minute video or a 2-minute video or a 4-minute video. You're there watching TV and then your context changes. And I think it's taking that mindset and being able to flip that into your comms and not trying to do everything on every single piece that you're doing. And it's difficult and it's complicated, and you never get it completely right, or you feel like you're not getting it right, but you kind of have to have strength in your conviction to take that through.
Just got to keep going.
Yeah, Joe, the thing I was just going to ask is, you touched on education, right? Because as you mentioned, with there's a lot of greenwashing going on in the industry, and kind of people just firing a message out there, thinking, "Oh, brilliant, we've done it." It's not really credible, but it's going to give us enough length of rope that somebody's going to take a tug on it, and they think we're actually this business that we're saying we are when we're not. But the fact is, that's not always the case. It's grey areas. There's a lot of education to really get people to understand actually the ins and outs, and what's kind of transparent and what's real about that. So I guess because there's quite a big education piece involved in your messaging, has that really affected, the channels and the tactics and the strategy behind how you've developed the marketing? Because it's probably, you could argue, maybe a little more complicated for you guys, because there's more information, more in-depth information needs to be communicated out than just say for a kind of straight up clothing retailer where it's just about brand, buying to my brand, really simple messaging, and that's it.
Yeah, the challenge we have is who wants to connect with the brand that is being a bit worthy and educating you and becomes a bit boring. And I think we have a big, I think in our heads, and if anyone's listening who's a geography teacher or married to a geography teacher, just take this with a pinch of salt, but we always think it's the boring geography teacher or the boring teacher in the corner who no one is listening to. Who wants that to be that brand? We're an activewear business that's changing the face of the industry. That doesn't reflect in education as you see it. So I think for us it's about understanding where to put those things, and understanding that the people who really want it will go and find it, and then you can do it. But then also, if we're going to do it in a fun way, do it in a different way. And I think, you know, George, there's loads of TikToks and stuff where you can actually see people doing that sort of thing in a fun way. I think the Washington Post are a fantastic example on TikTok about how they take really serious news stories and they distill them down into 15 seconds. But even still, it's still kind of surface level, but they're working on the, oh my God, oh yeah, that's a story. I'll go and actually buy the paper, or I'll look at it online, or I'll subscribe, or whatever. I think they're a really, really good example. So for us, it's missing that trap. And also, we can't afford to just spend to go and educate people. You know, we still have to be a brand that emotionally connects with people. We still need to be that point of difference. I think it's also us looking and saying, how do we educate the industry? How do we use our owned platforms? So if someone buys something from us, say a 73.0 range, what can we do and use the product and inserts and things like that where they're going to be more engaged, rather than just going to someone cold and going, what you're wearing is wrong. You know, they're not going to come and start a relationship with us. So I think for us, and we, like I said, we're not perfect at this. We're not, you know, we're figuring it out and finding out the right balance. And I think we've been a little bit worthy in the past, and we're certainly trying to, this season, the way that the brand has evolved is very different. And it's really injecting the fun and hardcore having a laugh, which is the mantra of our founder and majority owner, Dave. And getting that in there. So it's a real balance for us, is how do you get that sense of wonder and adventure and activeness? How do you get that sense of fun? Because, you know, some brands are very serious activewear. You know, I'm going to grit my teeth and never smile.
Do you think that's a society thing? Do you think that's something that this whole cancel culture that's gone out there at the moment, and how easy it is to kind of just hate on a brand for what they do, is kind of put brands a bit back in their seat and actually had to think more about what they put out on social media?
I don't know. I think that's a question to someone who might be more affected, because I think what we do is, you know, we are a considered company, so it is a bit different. I think, you know, I worked in esports for a while, and actually you've got a lot more flexibility. However, there are certain lines you can't cross and certain things that aren't acceptable. And I don't think it's cancel culture, because I just don't think brands should be anywhere near that line anyway, right? Because what kind of brand are you if you're picking a fight like that? Unless you're a content brand that is a talk sport, or, you know, one of those.
Yeah, I suppose it almost leans on that kind of, like you say, about how, a company like yourself and BAM being having their purpose so close to their hearts. How have you explored influencer marketing or stuff? Because I suppose that's when, if that influencer then does something that's out of tune or out of turn, that could then have a negative effect on the brand.
It could be. We actually, I mean, we've worked with a fantastic set and array of influencers who are a part of our broader community and our place within the community. So whether that's people who are BAM ambassadors, yeah, thank you. I didn't come up with that. Who are on contract.
Even if it wasn't you that came up with it, by the way.
So they're on contract, and they work with us. So our TV ad was actually three of those ambassadors that we've used in the past were actually our stars of our TV ad. And we work with a full array, so that you'll see a lot of them in our imagery for this year. So it's not just models, we're getting actual yogis, PTs, adventurers, runners, things like that. So we do use them and fundamentally use them a lot. And they're a good bunch. If one of them suddenly turned and did all of that, then, you know what, I think honestly, if we kept using them, it would be a massive issue. If we started using them and they had a background that we didn't agree with, so we probably wouldn't go and work with someone who with Boohoo, for example, not because of anything, but they just probably don't share our values. And if they did something, then we would end the relationship and say thanks very much, but sorry, but that doesn't align with our values. We're very lucky that we have a very good bunch, and Danny, who's in our team, who looks after that, has worked really hard to build those relationships up. But I there's risk in anything you do, right? The comma in a wrong place, or working with people who aren't internally your brand. But I don't think you can live in fear, really. As long as you've got confidence in what you do and you can stand behind it. I mean, Ryanair are a fantastic example of a brand that don't really give a shit. They are who they are.
Yep.
They don't hide or pretend to be anything else. And if you are not happy with your service, you don't often see them grovel or apologise. So. Right. So I think it just really depends on who you are and your approach. And I think for other brands, I think the real takeout is this really important to you, and is this at the heart of your business, or are you doing this for a bit of marketing? Are you doing it just to try and take advantage of it? Because people will see through it, your staff will see through it, and I don't think it's very good for internal comms that you're promising this and then doing something somewhere else. Because people do care, they do care where they work, and they are motivated by those things. And be very human about it. We are not perfect. We are on a journey. We are trialing things, doing things. We have a little bit of elastane still in our product. It's still a very small percent compared to the rest of the industry. Tiny, in fact. We're incredibly market leading in that, but there's still a bit in there. So, because there isn't anything else out there that does that at this stage, and I'm hoping that in the next year we might have a couple of stories about that. But it's so really, I read something the other day, this is just to give you an example. Seacell, which is made from seaweed, a fabric made from seaweed. If you type that into Google, you get stuff from 2007 and about how terrible it is as a fabric, and it didn't have any seaweed in, and it was awful. We are looking at that as something that we potentially could use in the future, but it's progressed in 15 years. So these things move on, and I think it's about understanding that you're not perfect, and be human, be a face, don't be a corporate body and say we are on this journey to do this, we're doing all of this that we think is great, and this is what we don't do, but we're aiming to change it by then, but we just physically can't. And I think whereas if you've got a lot of money, it might be hard to change it because people will want their profit margin. And whereas if you're a smaller business like us, sometimes you don't have enough money to be able to do everything you want to do. And so I think it's just being really upfront with people, and people understand that they're not perfect in their lives. You can be...
I guess the two key things there is it's humility and personality, and we talk about the education, the values, like the messaging that's put out, and it feels like having a business, like you said, being really kind of serious. And actually they're the ones that may typically fall down because actually, they're so straight-laced, they're so serious, they're the ones that are easier to catch out if what they deliver isn't quite what they said it was, or if the information is not quite correct. Whereas actually having a bit of humility and personality, maybe Ryanair, the kind of absolute opposite end of the spectrum, maybe don't take themselves seriously enough, but it's a really good example of actually, because of that, because everyone looks at them and thinks, do you know what, Ryanair know exactly what they are, but I know what I'm getting with them. They get forgiven for it, don't they? Because they're not trying to put themselves up on too much of a pedestal, which is exactly to the point you're making. And look, we're trying to do some great things. We're not perfect, but we're also going to be really open, transparent. And if we do get things wrong, we'll take it with a bit of personality and we'll hold our hands up, but we'll see the funny side of it.
Yeah, I mean, humility and personality, I think, it's a really difficult. The personality bit is a really difficult bit for brands. The humility bit should be really important. It should be it doesn't have to be everywhere, but it's just being able to be honest. I think it's honesty as well. I think that's the kind of key thing, and I think people will respond to that.
I think the word that I keep hearing thrown around in the whole marketing world at the moment is be authentic. is quite a hot word at the moment, and I think it kind of ties closely to this, and authentic and be transparent with your marketing, this, that, and the other. And I think you're right. I don't think people aren't stupid. They can see through these stories.
Yeah, I think authentic. What is authentic though? We're authentic because we're trying to fool you with our marketing. We could be really authentic with, I think it's just what is the core of your business and values, and before you even talk to customers about it, are you doing it? Are you actually trying to make the change? I think it's be human, not authentic. It's just having that humanity and humility and those and honesty of those values. I think be your authentic self, or what is that as a brand if you sell?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a buzzword.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if my business sells nails, but I need to be authentic. It's kind of like just, you probably pride yourself on your customer service, on people buying from bulk, and that relationship with the people in the business. They're people that you get on with. It's that I think is the, and then not have. That's the kind of core bit of it. And I guess if you're a big company, you probably don't. You can't do that because you're not.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're lucky because we're a small business. The owner is still involved in the business. We, we're very, very flat structure. Lots of people get involved. Everyone knows why we're doing what we're doing, and that maybe enables it a lot better than if you're, 1,000 people, 2,000 people. But,
and I guess all this sort of stuff, right? It's all kind of. We've spoken about some really broad, subjects there, and loads of different stuff that's covered. And I guess that's sort of been a really good picture of maybe how retail's changed. From maybe what it was, kind of 10, 15 years ago. From your side of things, where do you see retail kind of moving forward? So just to give you kind of, a real, just brief overview of some of the things that we've noticed recently. You look at how, Gymshark, great example at the moment. They've gone from being an e-commerce business now moving into putting some bricks and mortar retail in place in the centre of London. But actually, they're not really pitching it as it's a retail unit. Actually, they're branding it as a kind of a brand community area where actually it's for collaboration, it's for people to come together. But that space just happens to sell some Gymshark, clothing and stuff while it's there. We're looking at, the e-commerce moving into, the Web3 space and stuff like that. So, from somebody who's in the heart of retail at the moment, where do you see it going moving forward? And for you, what are the kind of key things that you're looking to focus on for a bit of future proof for Bamboo?
What is the future of retail? I mean, God, so much has happened in the last 2 years. The last 2 or 3 years. I don't think anyone would have predicted that. I know you asked this to me beforehand, so I'm thinking about the right way that I can. The first thing, which is a really boring, very specific thing, which is around attribution. So, in 12, 14, 15 odd years of digital marketing, which is now a core function of any retailer, attribution is still ruddy difficult, nigh on impossible. Some people will have complicated econometrics things, but not everyone can afford those, or not everyone is probably ready for those. People are working with CDPs and things like that to give one customer views. So, rather than it being kind of broadcast net, you get into a more personalized world of understanding where those customers shop or don't shop. But again, they're very expensive technologies to buy and implement. And then you also have a lot of the people that you're using to drive traffic who mark their own homework and don't play with each other, which is down to the attribution issue. So it's so on one side, that I don't think it will ever be fixed. I cannot believe it will ever be fixed. The person who does it will become the richest person in the world. In terms of what retail is, I think we've just been on this evolution of what retail is. So it really depends on technology. I think it depends on what that enables us to do. So through COVID, huge boom in e-commerce, naturally. But then after, as a general rule this year, is that actually e-commerce is not doing as well, but bricks and mortar have come back because it's spread out, because naturally. I think that the bricks and mortar experience, we are just a D2C brand, but I think it's about having diversity for a retailer. I think that technology piece is really interesting, because 15 years ago, something happened in your store, in your shop, it might not be a big issue. Now, then social media came along, and suddenly it could have a significant effect in your business because of your customer service. And actually, that revolutionized retail. So I think for me, it's like, what are those technologies around the corner? Social shopping has been around for donkey's years. If I hear more people talk about it, I would just say, so what does that actually mean? Does that have a link in your Instagram? What does that mean? And do you think that people are just seeing something and buying it holistically outside of hero products? Maybe if Kim Kardashian's dropping a pair of special trainers, it would happen, or a Man United shirt. But is that going to be the way that people buy socks and underwear? Probably not. Right? So for me, it's I think it will be about understanding diversity and those store experiences. That Gymshark experience, brilliant example. Be more, instead of relying on gyms and getting into gyms, create your own gyms. It's the Red Bull model of, do we need to get into all of this, or shall we just create our own places that we'd want to advertise on, football teams, content, Red Bull races, all of that sort of stuff. I think Waterstones did it as well, probably about 5 years ago or so now, where they started to rethink bookshops. So now they're coffee shops. So you can get a book, buy a book, read a book, have a coffee. There are places where you can go and meet up with mums or dads or whatever it might be. So I think you will always have shops. You will always have that traditional bricks and mortar thing. You will always have Waitrose's. Or Tesco's, or whomever the supermarkets are. Who would have thought that you could go and just pick up your shopping, or that you could just scan it yourself? I think it's all around experience and what technology allows you to do. And I don't know what that would be. But same thing, look at next same day delivery. That's not particularly great for the planet, but that's come along. So I think for us, it's about, we are predominantly a UK business. We have a lot that we can grow in the UK, and that's really our focus. I think we can do that through both our direct to consumer and potentially working with some partners in order to do that, or hopefully that we partners would want to work with us. And then we obviously then looking at the international way that we can roll out a D2C model, and I think that's also, so that's interesting. Bricks and mortar are interesting still, but the cost to do that, Gymshark, how much do they turn over? 100 million at least a year.
A lot.
So you can do that. I think, why else did I see IKEA? I think, weren't they rumoured to be buying the Topshop store on Oxford Street in London, which is
That's
a huge 3 or 4 story. I read somewhere that they were trying to buy it, but you wouldn't be able to buy anything there. So it would be completely an experience store where I guess they would offer you free next day delivery or something like that. So I think the experience is going to be really interesting, and you might see a lot more concept stores, hybrid stores, things where you can combine those things. I think that IKEA example is really interesting because they're a business based on actually having these huge things. And I think they're closing their big store in Tottenham, or have closed it. So you think that's a huge amount of their area that they can't reach, but actually having a concept store, which you could probably do more things, you could do events, you can, I think that's really interesting. I think for retail also, stepping out of your lane a bit might be also interesting. So, you know, what are those side experiences where your product is mostly used, and how do you become integrated into that and build community rather than just selling product? I think they're probably the things that I think will move. But fundamentally, sorting attribution out, I think, would save every marketer who runs an e-commerce business will probably say that. If they don't, then I want to meet them and extract their brain. Suck out their brain.
The last bit's interesting, where you say about brands kind of, you know, getting out of their lane, and again using them again. The Gymshark that opened the barbers, and then to kind of explore into that men's mental health space, and it's just a really interesting way that these brands.
I think that was a time with Movember, wasn't it? Because Movember were the first people to do the barbershops and the talks, and they're actually a very good example of a brand that's been able to, you know, take it slightly outside that. But, you know, it's events, it's festivals. You know, why do you have to sponsor a festival if you can run one yourself? And I think that's, I mean, also from a B2B point of view, which is not retail, but there's a lot around that as well, which kind of already happens a bit, where it's, I could pay for a stall at this event, or what if I actually ran my own? You know, agencies do that, and it's kind of like, you know, there could be really interesting parts. I mean, I'd love us to run a BAM festival, but I'm not sure if will be coming
it's not
very
cheap.
soon.
I'm sure it's not cheap to do so.
No, exactly.
If you do, put it down for a couple of tickets.
I'll give you a discount. Okay.
Massively conscious of time. I want to finish off with a quick fire round. Me and Alex got a couple of questions we want to run by you. I want a quick answer from them, and then we'll tail it there. But who's your inspiration and why?
Oh God, my wife. My wife is an incredible person who is achieving a lot and doing a lot in the sphere of animal rights, plant-based pet food, and is you know, making waves and doing research. People are reading, commissioning books and stuff in that area. So definitely her. I think there are some other fantastic startups that I think anyone who does a startup is pretty brave and inspirational, that they have the balls to do it. People like the Pack, and I think this as a brand are pretty good. A couple of missteps, but they're very brave and have built a brand rather than a product, even though the product is incredibly tasty. So I think a lot of those, they're people in the market that really kind of jump out to me, who I think are pretty inspirational.
Awesome,
cool. Next one. If you could live anywhere, where would it be and why?
Beautiful South Devon, in the wonderful village of Newton Ferris.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. Well, it's funny actually, because my wife and I, you know, we moved here about 2 years ago, and we'd been in London for 16, 17 years or whatever it was, and we were trying to figure out where we wanted to live. I think it would just, if it wasn't here right now, it would have to be somewhere coastal, somewhere with seasons. Maybe Cascais or Lisbon would be pretty good. Barcelona is pretty good. I think if I had to move somewhere right away, or maybe there was a couple of places on the west coast of America and California that were pretty good, but I'd probably want them moved out of the US. Maybe somewhere else.
Fair comment.
Rumours of a Trump return might be happening. The other place that I actually loved, I visited loads of times, is Vancouver, and I really love Vancouver. I haven't been there for many moons, maybe almost 15 odd years, but I loved Vancouver, so that would definitely be an option.
Awesome. Next one. Films. Comedy, horror, action or history, and out of your selection, which film?
Can we not just merge them? What film would that be? That would be great, wouldn't it? A comedy, action, horror based in World War II. Put me down. I'm there.
It sounds a bit like Team America, if I'm honest.
Let's see.
Sounds great.
Back to the Future, Lost Boys. They are maybe two of my all-time favourites. So I think action is just. I love the older action stuff. I think action these days is a little bit. It's a bit too much full time. Although the Bonds are pretty good. I do like the modern Bonds. But I do love a historical thing. I do love a fantasy thing, like Lord of the Rings. I'm loving the new series. All you naysayers can do one. I'm a bit, so I'll probably say that. That's enough.
Fair enough. Night in or night out?
Night in. God, I'm old. everything in moderation and variety.
I'm the same. Yeah, I'm the same.
Pete, I've got an 18-month-old. I couldn't face a night out.
Well, I'm going to a hen do. I'm an honorary hen for a night, so ask me again on the Sunday morning after that, and I might be telling you, "Oh God, night in. Oh God, please."
Can't wait.
Ask me during it. I might be night out, so who knows.
Brilliant. And last one for you, buddy. What superpower would you have?
Oh, great question. Can I just say, if anyone's watching this and they're an agency or a technology, I love nights out. Just in case I get any invites. People think, oh, it's fine. He just likes the night in. No, joking aside, superhero power. Right, I would have, if we're in a world where superheroes have powers, rather than just being me, I would have the superhero power that Peter Petrelli had in Heroes. See, I told you I was a bit of a geek. Where once he touched you, not like that, or like that, but mostly not like that, he was able to absorb, not just replicate their power inside him. So that way I could have all of the powers.
That's just greedy.
Yeah.
It's a great answer, though. You can't argue with it.
Well, it's canon in the Heroes universe, so
there you go. Look, we're going to have to end there because we are out of time. But Pete, Alex, I really appreciate you taking the time to join. But Pete, last question: where can everyone find you on social media? Where can they chat to you?
LinkedIn, Pete Durant on Twitter, Pete Durant on Instagram. You can buy a couple of books that I've written. Amazon, just search for Pete Durant. #blessed is the latest one. So leave a review if it's good. If you don't like it, don't leave a review. And then obviously we're bambooClothing.co.uk, and you can find us across Instagram is probably the best place to come and explore our active wear community.
Great stuff. Awesome. Thanks both. Have a great weekend.
Right.
Thanks guys. See ya.